I'm Tug Coward, along with Scott Munn in the Warrior Alliance Studios here in Atlanta, Georgia. Scott, you know, we always have impressive veterans when we can have them on, and these are folks who have created and grown their very own business.
Yeah, and family-owned small businesses really, Tug, are the key to our nation's economy. And today we're going to talk with another veteran who's created his own path to success after service. For nearly 10 years, Army veteran Jason Robbins has owned Patriot Towing Services, which is a full-service towing and recovery company with a fleet of 14 trucks and trailers and over 20 employees right here in the Atlanta, Georgia metro area. He's mixed his military and his business experience with his love of country to create his own American dream. Jason Robbins, congrats on your success after service, and welcome to the Warrior Alliance Network.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
What's going on with you today, man?
Oh, not much. Glad to be here.
Yeah,
Appreciate you inviting me.
It's a lot of fun for us, too. Patriot Towing and semi-truck heavy wrecker services. Okay, that sounds quite hard. I mean, I don't know that I would know what to do. Like, if there's an 18-wheeler broke down on the side of the road, I don't know that I'd be
Sounds
able
like
to
a
help.
military unit.
It does. That's exactly right. I don't know that I'd know how to help. So what was it that made you decide to start this company? What's your company all about? I mean, it's clear what you do, but what's it all about?
Sure, yeah. No, it's our company, Patriot Towing, is... we wanted to, obviously we named it, you know, I got to thank my wife, Kim came up with the name, trying to...
Smart man right there.
Use our...
You know what you're doing.
Use our military, background, and we are very involved with veteran organizations, so and we like to do everything we can. So that's kind of where the name came about, and really just wanted to get into an industry that was, one, recession-proof, and which a lot of businesses aren't. Although we never thought we'd expect we'd have to look at a pandemic-proof business. So
yeah, right.
It wasn't quite pandemic-proof, but that's all right. We got through it, and just wanted to be in an industry where I felt like we could make a difference and we could have a positive effect on an industry, and maybe do a little bit to raise the image of what the typical towing company may or may not look like, or what people may think about it, by adding some different levels of customer service and things like that. But I always have enjoyed working and being around trucks and heavy equipment, and so we really so that's kind of what drew us to that type of industry, and we were able to find a unique opportunity.
Yeah, sounds like it. I was in communications in the Navy and work in communications now. Did you work with heavy machinery and trucks and stuff like that in the Army?
Not really on the real heavy stuff. I didn't.
Okay.
I was the Humvees were used a lot for both the communications and the UAVs that I worked on, and I was chosen at one point. I was licensed and was able to teach my entire unit how to train and drive the Humvees. So I've always been kind of excited about trucks and vehicles and off-roading and that sort of thing. So
I don't know about you, but when I think of Humvees, that comes off as heavy equipment to me. I'm sure in the Army it's probably
right.
This me being an old Navy guy, I don't know what in the world I'm talking about, but that
Right.
So I think most people probably look at it the way I do. But I love what differentiates your company from other companies is the fact that you put that patriot, that veteran, that love for country in the title. You want people to recognize what you are and why you're different.
That's correct. And we do a really good job of trying to hire veterans. Almost half of our workforce today is veterans.
Wow, that's great.
So that's been a big accomplishment for me. Working with the different veteran organizations that we have over the years, and been able to find quality veterans that have again made the transition like I have from military service to civilian life, and trying to find a way to use our service and experience into something in a civilian world, and it's been pretty pretty good at that.
Sounds like it.
And we were talking before the show that you're kind of on the good side of the towing spectrum. That I was asking you, what percentage of your business is towing folks who are in the wrong place, and what percentage is helping people who need a tow? And you told me that you guys really go after the contracts or the opportunities to help people. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say a majority of our business, probably 85% of our business or more, is people that have broken down, or their vehicles.
Like just every day people in the city of Atlanta. You on 285 or 400 or I-20.
That's correct. Yeah, anywhere, on the side of the road, at their house, vehicle doesn't start, cars. What we always joke about at the office is cars don't break down in convenient places. So we've got to go, get them and get them back on the road. It's our job to bring that person's, whether it's an individual at their home, a mom with kids, an older grandparent or something on the side of the highway, or a fleet company that has 50 trucks on the road and one of their trucks are down. Time is money to them. So it's our job to get there as quick as we can, try and get them to a repair facility and get them back on the road and running as quickly as possible.
So one way to restate that is you have veterans out on the urban front here in Atlanta, Georgia, on little rescue missions, if you will, helping our people out. And Atlanta needs it because it's a wasteland out there, and the traffic, well, there's no rush hour anymore. It's just all rush hour.
It's just rush day.
Yeah, rush day. So we really appreciate you putting veterans to work and then going out and helping the community with that service. But before you started this company, I know you did spend 20 plus years in the financial services sector. Yeah, consulting to both families and businesses, and you made that significant pivot into the towing business after 20 years in that industry. What was your motivation to pivot like that, to shift? And a lot of veterans do that. They don't find their best thing first when they get out of the service. What motivated you to start your own business?
Yeah, I think it evolved over time. Originally got out of the military, went to school. When we were growing up, we were told, either go to the military or you go to school, you get a degree, and you'll get a job with a company and figure out what you want to do. And so after the military, I went to school, worked on a business degree, and ultimately found myself in the financial services industry as a consultant to business owners, primarily on, anything from compensation plans to lending, to exit planning, and then ultimately estate planning and things like that. So I had consulted with a number of business owners from a wide array of industries for a long time, and just the longer I did it, the more I realized I wanted to be in that seat. I wanted to try and take all the knowledge I had gained over a long period of time and put it to use for my own business. And so that's kind of when I started looking around and trying to find and identify an opportunity for me to buy a small business and grow it on my own.
So you sort of used your time in the financial sector as research and development to choose a business that would make sense for you.
That's correct. Yeah. At the end of the day, ultimately, I saw a ton of different businesses. Some that really succeeded well, some that didn't. Again, went through the 08, 09 recession, and that left a very, important reminder on my consciousness the whole time. Again, that's why I said, one of the things that had to be was recession-proof, and that's because of the customers and clients that I had that, that those that made it through 08, 09, and some of those that didn't, and so that was a big concern of mine.
This show's talking about success after service, and you've been successful in service. You were successful in the financial world and now successful again in your own business. It should be encouraging to veterans to know that they can do the exact same thing. They have that same skill set, whatever it is that they've learned in the military. Mine was communications is what I did. And it's turned into a career afterwards. It's the only thing I've done. I was in the military, and I've been in broadcast. That's it. It's the only thing. So I'm actually fascinated by you, the fact that you've done so much. You've had so much success after service. I mean, that's to be applauded, and that says a lot about veterans and what veterans are capable of, I think.
Well, I appreciate that, but I agree. I mean, you know, there is a difficulty that a lot of veterans face when they get out of the military and get into the civilian world. It's hard to take some of our experiences and put them on a resume and then
quantify them a little bit,
right, and then go out to the corporate world and seek a job, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, what I do is logistics. I'm just moving, you know, something from point A to point B every single day, 100 times a day, and it doesn't matter what it is. It's not a whole lot different than in the military. We were moving units around, you know. My MOS was a unit level communication maintainer. So every time we got to a new location for training, I had to set up an entire comms unit for our entire unit or division. And so it's very similar. And so I think, you know, before I started Patriot Towing, I had gotten very actively involved in Vet Buds, a local veterans organization, and I started talking to other veterans that were also business owners. And, you know, you realize there's a lot more application to what we did in the military to civilian world, but it's not always easy to see when you're kind of stuck in it and you're just getting out of the military.
Yeah, hard to get people to understand. And like you said, hard to quantify, hard to write it out.
That's correct.
Here's all the things I do, and this is how it applies in the civilian world. So I see the connection between your military service and Patriot Towing. How does the financial background help you in your business?
Probably more than anything. I mean, you know, I luckily, when I went to college to get a business degree, I had an uncle that was in banking and really guided me to get an accounting degree. And accounting is something that every business uses every single day. And or if you don't use it, you probably won't be around for very long, you know. So it's trying to understand how to apply those same principles, and so that has really helped me understand how to manage the business and you know, work through, you know, difficulties as they come and that sort of thing.
Speaking of difficulties, what would you say was the biggest challenge or hurdle that you had to overcome to start your own business that you can kind of tell other veterans listening that they should look out for?
Well, I think inherently in every business, every industry, each industry has its own challenges. So, you know, I spent probably 12 to 18 months researching and trying to make sure I understood everything I could about the towing industry before I made the plunge. And invariably, it still wasn't enough. You know, it's still a massive learning curve. And, you know, but if you can try to surround yourself with good people, you know, there's a lot of resources in our veterans, you know, the Warrior Alliance, Vet Buds. There's a lot of other places that you can get guidance, like the small business development centers here in Georgia. A lot of people don't understand. They're fully funded by the state. It's free to anyone that wants to use it. You can go and you can get guidance. They help you build business plans. So there's a lot of different resources that are available to you. And, you know, it's just, you have to be willing to look and ask. And unfortunately, that's where veterans probably have some of the most difficulty, because we all want to just beat our own chest and say that we can get it done, and we don't like to ask for help. And that's where a lot of us veterans fall down, is because we don't ask for help.
Well, that's what the Warrior Alliance and Vet Buds and folks like you are doing, is we're rebuilding the unit here at home, you know.
That's
and
correct.
Let's all get together and work together to make this thing work for everybody. Let's look back at your military career, Jason. I'm going to run through some of this. It's some good stuff. 3 years active duty in the Army as a 31V unit level communications maintainer. You went to basic at AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. We talked about before the show how I lived there, I guess, 82 through 84 with my father. when he was in the Army there at Fort Sill. He was a military police chief there, though.
Okay.
It's a different thing, not the
Yeah.
basic training. But what a great place to live, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Stationed in Arizona, the 111th Military Intelligence Brigade, trained as a external pilot in a 96U unmanned aerial vehicle. Well, I guess you weren't in it. You were basically like a...
You're the controller.
Yeah, you're the
Yes.
controller for, what is that, like a... what are these...
The drone.
Yeah, the drones that they're using now. I flew, my unit had the very first Pioneer. The plane was called Pioneer, and it was the very first plane of its kind that was used in the military. It was used by the Army, the Navy, and the Marines at the time. And so, there were 3 people that operated that plane when we took it off for missions. The first one was the external pilot, which is what I was trained to do, and basically sat on the runway, and I would take the plane off and fly it around, do the controls and the checks, and if everything was good, then I would transfer it to an internal pilot who sat in a shelter on the back of a Humvee. They would fly it downrange, do the mission. And then there was also a payload operator that operated the camera. So the internal payload operator would take the vehicle downrange, do the mission, and then when they would bring it back and I could get visual, then I would go take control of it and I would land it.
So the one that you controlled or were part of, is it, because I just did a search just because I wanted to lay eyes on it.
Right.
And I see a couple, I don't know what, is it more like the helicopter
No.
or is it more like an airplane?
It was an airplane.
Yeah.
It had a wingspan
Yep.
of 17 feet.
Okay, I'm seeing that one. That one's the most familiar to me anyway.
Yes.
So that makes sense a lot. Okay.
But you were sort of an early adapter. You were one of the first ones involved in that
Absolutely,
program.
yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then after active duty, you served 2 years in the National Guard, too.
Right. So, yeah, part of our, contract is, as you guys probably know, that, when you sign up for the military, it's an 8-year commitment. So,
4 active, 4 inactive.
most people do, 4 active or stay in longer. And at the time, I decided to get out and wanted to go back to college. And so I served only 2 of my 4 years that I should have been in the Guard, active duty in the Guard, because at that time they were doing a military downsizing. And so because I was going to school, I got kind of pushed out. And so I only served, about 5.5 technical years, I believe.
That's still a whole bunch. It's more than most.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. Absolutely.
What made you, what I guess made you decide to stick around to go in the National Guard, and what was the experience like? Obviously, the downsizing probably cut it a little short, but overall, good experience.
It was, a way for you, to come back and, 1 weekend a month, still got to go play Army, and 2
That's right.
weeks, 2 weeks out of the year, we would go, do some training and that. So I enjoyed it. Yes, it was fun.
Military background. Do you give your military service the most of the credit for the success that you've had since you gotten out?
I would think so. That, and then, just the drive and the work ethic that, my parents instilled in me.
Sure.
My grandfather was a Navy diver.
Oh, God bless him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like an EOD diver?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so that was, interesting to hear some of his stories before he passed. My dad was
incredible.
in the Navy. My father-in-law was Air Force. I've got a couple brother-in-laws are both Marines and Navy as well. And so
You got a family full.
So we do, yes. So
Well, you had
yeah.
to do the Army to complete the cycle.
That's
there.
right. You got to
Well,
get
exactly.
everybody in.
That's I had to. My dad
Buck
always
the
asked
system
me,
a little bit.
why'd you do that? So why'd you want to go sleep in the mud? And I thought, it sounded more fun to me.
than being at the beach. I can't
that's right.
imagine, but I mean, I'll take your word for it.
I would imagine that you might have some good advice. 20 years in the financial sector, and now you've been running your own company for so long. There's veterans listening right now who might be struggling in their transition to civilian life. What would you tell veterans that maybe they want to become an entrepreneur, maybe they just want to find a job, maybe they have a job already and they want to level up a little bit? What would you speak to them? Tell them what you would say to somebody who says, I'm having a little trouble and I need some advice on how to make this thing work.
Well, I think the first thing I would do is, which I didn't do when I got out of the military. I kind of went to school and then just got involved in just kind of stayed separated from military and veterans for quite a long period of time. No real reason other than I didn't seek it out, and then got busy raising a family, and just never happened.
Life happened.
Life happened, exactly. But then when I met a few veterans here, and got involved with Vet Buds, and then I realized there's just so many other opportunities for veterans to stay involved and stay connected and really help guide. And like I said, it doesn't, when we just got out of the military, we don't always see what we were doing in the military being, similar to what we're doing in civilian life, and there's a lot of challenges. But what I would say is get involved in veteran organizations, because one, you miss that camaraderie. There's no camaraderie like the veteran camaraderie.
Agreed.
Right? So, get involved and reach out. We have, one of the things we do on a monthly basis is we give scholarships to veterans that have gotten out and are going to school at Georgia State University.
Okay.
Through the military outreach program there. So we give a scholarship every month to veterans.
Wow.
And so that's been really neat to have the ability to try and coach folks that are getting out and they're going to school, and then they come and they get to come to our breakfast and meet everybody.
Now that's with the Patriot Towing Services, or which organization is that?
That's Vet Buds.
With Vet Buds. What's their
That's
website,
correct.
Vet Buds?
So it's vetbuds.us.
Yeah, and you guys are associated with the Warrior Alliance.
That's correct.
And
That's
you can
correct.
find everything out at thewarrioralliance.org, thewarrioralliance.org, or patriottowingservices.com. Or
Right.
go to the Vet Buds site and check it out. And what other events do you have besides, you got a monthly scholarship, and then you have some other activities y'all are up to out there?
Yeah, we do several things. We do a big focus on homeless vets. To date, Vet Buds has donated 45 vehicles to veterans to try and get them off the street and back, gainfully employed. Obviously,
Huge.
if you don't have transportation, it's hard to find a job
Yes, sir.
and make a living, right? So that's our biggest focus. Then we do the scholarship grants every month, and then we also do, our mission statement is to serve veterans, and so veterans of any need, we've built, ramps, for folks that can no longer walk and have to get a wheelchair and to their house and make their houses handicap accessible. We've done all kinds of things, and part of how I got involved with the Warrior Alliance is Mark Eister, who is Vice President of Operations. I mean, he's been a big member of Vet Buds for better than 10 years that I'm aware of, and he's the one that initially was at Georgia Perimeter College before it became Georgia State, and he started that program of giving away the scholarship grants. So Mark's a big reason why I'm here today and connected with the Warrior Alliance.
He's a good man.
He is.
We know the things that you've done. We know what you're doing now. What motivates you? I would imagine family, probably, because most military veterans are family folks. I know I am. I know Scott comes from a military family. Something tells me, Jason, that you probably are pretty proud of your family too, huh?
I am. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. My wife Kim and I will celebrate our 30th anniversary this year. So that's a pretty good
Congratulations.
milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's big time there.
It is, and we have 3 kids. Our daughter Andy is the oldest, and she's actually getting married this year. So,
Wow.
So that's a big, so this year is going to be a pretty important year for us. And then 2 sons, Brian and Connor. So,
Do any of them want to work with you at the towing company?
so I'm not sure yet. At the moment, the jury's still out.
Okay.
But no, they've all, they're all kind of going their own way and doing their own thing. Andy started out teaching and always wanted to be a teacher. Got her master's and became a teacher and taught for a few years, and then decided to go her own way. So she's building her own,
Path forward, huh?
business.
Yeah.
Exactly, for online, management and website and marketing and that sort of thing for businesses. So my sons are both in sales and doing different businesses on their own as well. So if nothing, I've taught them a little bit of entrepreneurship, and they seem to be, all working on their own path.
But isn't that the goal at the end of the day, is to make sure that your kids have the ability, you've given them that knowledge to move forward, whether doing what you do or finding their own way, but using what you've taught them, and it has to be gratifying for sure.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, going back to the work ethic that, my parents taught me, that's my proudest thing, is that they're all working hard, and they're not afraid.
And folks, it's PatriotTowingServices.com. Jason Robbins and his great team over there. The phone number, program it into your cell phone, so if you're on the side of the road, you can skip the government and call this guy.
I'm about to do that.
770-345-8888. 770-345-8888. Jason, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Warrior Alliance Network.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, sir.